Published 1713 EDT, the 25th of August 2017. Updated 1713 EDT, the 25th of August 2017. Police bungles including lost evidence, missing exhibits and interview mistakes let Michael Atkins off the hook in the days after his young lover disappeared, an inquest has heard. Detectives failed to ask Atkins questions when he was on the verge of giving information about what happened to Matthew Levison, who was last seen alive leaving a Sydney nightclub in 2007. When asked what happened to 20-year-old Matthew, Atkins, 55, said, "I want to tell you but I'm scared what will happen to me if I do," according to the Daily Telegraph. Matthew Levison's remains are being held at Glebe Morgue, below the coroner's court. Michael Atkins with his younger lover Matthew Levison, whose skeleton was found in May. Detective Senior Constable Scott Craddock, the detective in charge of the investigation into Matthew's death, told the inquest this clearly demonstrates Atkins was involved in this disappearance and needed to be questioned further. It is my opinion that opportunities were missed during questions to press Atkins on responses he gave. In addition to lost evidence and the officer's mistakes, a box of missing exhibits related to the case was found in the ceiling of a former policeman's home. Atkins was acquitted of killing his lover in 2009. Matthew's mother, Faye, said the family had to do a deal with the devil in agreeing for Atkins to get immunity from prosecution, as it was the only way they could find where her son was buried. Levison's parents held up pictures of their son's skeleton on Friday and accused his one-time older lover Michael Atkins of killing the boy. Mark and Faye Levison, with pictures of their son Matthew's remains at Glebe Coroner's Court. Atkins said he loved Matt. One of the pictures of Matthew's remains was captioned, "You don't do this to someone you love." Faye Levison had earlier stood in Glebe Coroner's Court and accused Michael Atkins of possibly smothering, drowning or burying Matthew alive. "We will always be left worrying. Did Matty suffer?" Mrs. Levison said. "Did he die quickly or was it slow and painful? Was he terrified?" While she spoke, Matthew's remains were being held in the morgue under the court. Mrs. Levison said her son would not be wearing his favorite suit when his family could finally give him a funeral. "They cannot dress a skeleton," she told the court. "We had to watch Matty be exhumed from the grave, piece by piece, bit by bit, and then rebuilt, and then watch him be packed up into 2 cardboard boxes and some evidence bags," she said. "That's not how a human should end up. Nobody should end up like that, and we shouldn't have had to see our son in that state." Mrs. Levison described the legal machinations that led to Atkins taking police to Matthew's grave in exchange for immunity from prosecution as a deal with the devil. She waved a photograph of her 20-year-old son and another of his skeleton at Atkins' 2 lawyers, according to the Daily Telegraph. "I want you to look," Mrs. Levison said. "This is what Atkins did to him." Matthew, who was last seen alive leaving Sydney's Inner City ARQ nightclub with Atkins in September 2007, had been sharing an apartment with his older lover at Cronulla. Mark and Faye Levison outside Glebe Coroner's Court with a picture of their son Matthew. One picture was captioned, "Atkins said he loved Matt. You don't do this to someone you love." Atkins, now 54, maintained for years he did not know what had happened to Matthew that night and was acquitted by a jury of his murder or manslaughter in 2009. He gave evidence at a coronial inquest last year on condition he could not be prosecuted for any offense other than perjury or contempt of court. When confronted with his perjured evidence, he did another deal that allowed him to escape prosecution if he led police to Matthew's grave. After several searches, and using a crude map drawn by Atkins, police found Matthew's remains buried in a shallow cave within the Royal National Park south of Sydney in May this year. Atkins, who had initially claimed Matthew might be living in Thailand, has since told police his young lover died of an overdose of the drug GHB and he had panicked when he found his body. Matthew Levison's skeleton was found in the Royal National Park south of Sydney this year. Police search for Matthew Levison's remains in the Royal National Park south of Sydney. Matthew's parents, Faye and Mark, had spent years searching for their son's remains, often visiting the bushland where they believed he was buried. "How do you put into words how the murder and the subsequent hiding of Matty's body has affected me?" Mrs. Levison asked the court on Friday. "There have been times I don't want to go on anymore. We will always be left worrying. Did Matty suffer? Did he die quickly or was it slow and painful? Was he terrified? Did he fight back? Was he smothered with a pillow? Was he held underwater? Did Atkins give Matty the fatal dose, just enough in a drink to render him unconscious and then bury him alive? Michael Atkins has been told he will not be required to give further evidence at the inquest. The crude map Michael Atkins drew of where he buried his lover Matthew Levison's body. Mark Levison carries flowers to the site where police found the remains of his son Matthew. He will go to my grave not knowing really what happened to Matty. I want Atkins to be forced to see Matty in the morgue to see the consequences of his actions. Deputy State Coroner Elaine Truscott ruled on Friday that Atkins would not be giving further evidence at the inquest. Ms. Truscott said the electrician had consistently lied to police for almost a decade. His more recent actions had been entirely self-serving. Michael Atkins has no credibility as a witness, Ms. Truscott said. It was more likely than not Atkins was still not telling the truth, but it was not in the interest of justice to have him give further evidence, as nothing he said could establish Matthew's cause and manner of death. Police searched for the remains of Matthew Levison in the Royal National Park earlier this year. Sorry, we are not currently accepting comments on this article.